Today, I am delighted to host this talk by our very special guest, Glaucio Pessoa, who will be discussing an engaging theme: Jesus walks on water, harnessing the power of trust. Before proceeding with today's talk, I would like to take a quick moment for a friendly reminder to please send in your questions for this morning's presentation using the chat window. Glaucio has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation today. Now, we are looking forward to an engaging time with our speaker, Glaucio Pessoa. He has been active in the Spiritist movement for over 37 years and currently serves as Vice President of the Christian Spiritist community of Atlanta. He has a special interest in Spiritist activities revolving around media, English translation, and music. Glaucio holds master's degrees in both business administration and electrical engineering, and currently works in data protection and compliance. This morning, Glaucio will speak to the theme of Jesus walks on the water, harnessing the power of trust. The narrative, which is found in the writings of John and Mark, portrays one of Jesus' most memorable miracles. However, it also exemplifies how confidence takes us to higher levels. We must have faith in the divine recourse and planning. We must also trust ourselves and those around us, regardless of how tormentous our lives might be. We are never alone. Please give a warm welcome to our dear brother, Glaucio.
Thank you, Brad. I also like to thank my friends from the U.S. Spiritist Federation for giving me this opportunity to discuss with you this very interesting passage. And in the introduction, it is not only in Mark and John, but also in Matthew. I should have when I sent the text, I should have mentioned Matthew as well, and that's exactly the passage I'm going to read right now. It's in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 and 33. So basically, it goes like this. So immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. An interesting point about this passage is that it is right after the multiplication of the bread and the fish. So, as we recall, Jesus provided us what was described as a miracle, the multiplication of resources to feed a very large crowd that was following him. So, right after that, he dismissed the crowd and he asked his disciples to get on the boat to cross. They would be crossing to Gennesaret, where there are several recorded miracles. Now, moving on to verse 23. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when he got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. Again, this is in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 and 33. And the same passage can be found in Mark chapter 6, verses 44, 45 through 52, and John chapter 6, verses 16 through 21. I'd like to first of all point out to some geographical aspects of this pretty much so that I can paint the scenario to you. So I'd like to refer to an interesting slide that I have that depicts the lake where it happened. Actually, at that time it was called the Sea of Galilee. So even though we in our minds we can think of it as a lake, but it was quite extensive. It's called the Sea of Galilee. It was also called Lake Tiberias, and later on, it was known as the Lake of Gennesaret because again, there were several miracles that happened in Gennesaret. So it is not just any ordinary lake. It is the surface is 64 square miles, so it's quite extensive. The maximum depth is 157 feet and extends on the longest. If you look at the longest axis, it is 13 miles long and between north and south, and the maximum of 7 miles east and west. So it is not. We're not talking about a little lake that you can cross just by rowing. It is quite. It is by though by the even by today's standards, it is quite large. And by the way, the River Jordan is one of the tributaries to the Sea of Galilee. So when we think about the whole scenario, now we can have a better understanding of what the situation that the disciples were in. So so as we can see here in the beginning of the passage, it was not dark yet. Right after after Jesus dismissed the crowd and asked his disciples to get on the boat, it wasn't dark yet. So you might say that was around dusk. So you could imagine that it was probably around between five, give or take between 5 and 6 o'clock, maybe around five, between 4 and 5. So it wasn't. It wasn't dark yet. Now what we see here is that he was by the time he was when we went to the mountain to pray, the boat of this mount this time was a long way from the land. So we can say that the boat was a few miles from land. Now, two details here: it was beaten by the waves and the wind was against them. So you might envision it as a small sailboat, a small fisherman boat, and the weather was not very helpful. And most importantly, the disciples are in trouble. Something is gone wrong. Now you're in the middle of a lake. You're a few miles away from the shore, and we're talking about a lake. Again, it's not one of those situations in which you can just get out of the boat and swim to the shore. We're talking about a sea that has a depth of around a maximum depth of 147 feet. So it's quite. Uh, they were kind of a big predicament. And another thing also, when they see Jesus, it was in the fourth watch. This is a Roman time segment. Romans, they had divided the night in four watches, and basically the first watch would be something between 6 and 9. Second watch between 9 and midnight. Third watch somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m. The fourth watch is between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. So this tells us that the disciples had been battling the waves. They have been struggling to cross to the other side for several hours. Now imagine, now by today's standards, it would have been a very scary experience. Now just imagine how it would have been 2000 years ago. It must have been a very dangerous situation. So we see here uh, that they were definitely, you would imagine, right, that they were scared, they were tired, maybe hungry, distraught, extremely stressed out. And to add to their confusion, they see a figure that approaches them walking on water. And that initially, that does not help them much. They are actually, that adds to their, adds to their concerns. Initially they believe that Jesus is a ghost. They believe that initially there was an apparition. And in the culture of the time, seeing a ghost was, now we understand that we, if we see a ghost, if we see a disincarnate experience, a disincarnate spirit, it is a normal phenomena. It's a normal experience. However, back then it was a sign of bad luck. So they were very exasperated when they imagined that they were seeing a ghost walking towards them. They thought that, hey, I mean, things are so bad, things are not going to get any better now. So, speaking of which, right? Speaking of the quote unquote miracle, um, Kardec explains, offers an explanation to it. In the book of Genesis, when in chapter 14, when he talks about fluids and the explanation of some of the facts that we sometimes see as supernatural, in item 43, he explains that whenever we see a table getting detached from the ground and floating, it apparently has not support. No support by physical eyes or support by physical means, the way we understand it. So the spirits, of course, they do not have an arm, they do not have a physical body. However, the way they perform that phenomena is they envelop and they penetrate that with fluids. And by fluids mean by energy, matter that is quasi material. So by doing that, they neutralize the effect of gravity. And by neutralizing the effect of gravity, they allow it to float. And Kardec uses an analogy, Kardec mentions, as the air does for balloons and kites. So kind of like, it is not saying that, hey, it is the same principle of that we would see the same principle of hydrodynamics, in which case if we fill up a balloon with a hot air, you reduce the density of that object and it floats. It's not saying that. That's not what Kardec is saying. Kardec is just using it as an analogy for that. So basically, we see here that the same way, right? The same way that I could do, that spirits can move objects, the spirits can make objects tap. And Kardec and others at the time study it very extensively. So we see here that we're not talking about a phenomenon, we're not talking about something supernatural, we're talking about laws of, I should say, laws of the universe that we still comprehend very little of. So the same way, so it's the same principle that you use to move an object, to lift an object, that could be applied to an individual as well. Now, Kardec expands on that. Now, that was chapter 14. Now, Kardec expands on that in chapter 15, I'm sorry, when he talks about the miracles of the gospel. And again, there is a section, specific section, um, where he deals with how Jesus was able to walk on water. And pretty much again, he refers back to the phenomena, to the principles, I should say, that he had alluded to in chapter 14, item 43. And what he emphasizes is like, hey, again, this is things are miraculous to us. Things are supernatural when we don't understand. Nothing's supernatural. Things are natural. Things are part of nature. It's just that to us, when we don't understand something, we think those are supernatural. When we don't understand what happens in our lives, when we sometimes we don't understand some of our struggles, some situations we face situations in which you think, oh my god, why is this happening to me? This is so unbelievable, so unreal. And to us, we see those as unnatural, unjust, and it's because we don't understand the whole of the situation. We don't understand the whole the master plan, how, so to speak. So similarly, this phenomena to us appeared to be supernatural at the time, because we had no understanding. Now we have some understanding of those phenomena. So now we can see that pretty much they they're part of nature. Interestingly enough, Kardec explains what happened. How actually Kardec offers two explanations of how Jesus was able to perform that particular feat, the particular phenomena. First of all, he mentions he alludes to what would be a projection of Jesus. Jesus projected himself and appears upon the water in a tangible form. And Kardec is more convinced that that would have been the case. Um, and he refers to tangible, the chapter on tangible apparitions, again in chapter 14, items 35 and 37. Another explanation is that again that the Jesus was able to float on water the same way that spirits are able to move objects using fluidic force. So again, Jesus had, when you're talking about a spirit that is perfect like Jesus, um, that spirit has an understanding, has sufficient understanding of laws of the universe, and again, laws that to us do not seem, that we still don't understand. And he performed he induces the phenomena in both himself and in Peter. Now, on the other hand, Peter was, of course, Peter being still not a perfect spirit, a spirit like us who is evolving. He doesn't understand, and he is unable to take part in the process because, quote unquote, he gets scared of the rough winds. In other words, he kind of loses focus and on Jesus, and he forgets to about the trust that he had in his master. And this is a very interesting point. The whole in the Bible, we see all these little details, and we see, hey, he got scared of the rough winds, and it's something that I will allude to a little bit later. So when we talk about faith, when we talk about trust, there are three different categories that in which we can exercise our trust or our faith. First of all, we can exercise our trust in the divine. We should exercise our trust in ourselves, and last but not least, we should also trust others. When we see here in the Gospel according to Spiritism, when we refer to chapter 19, Kardec talks about faith that transports mountains, the power of faith. He mentions faith. He categorizes faith as divine inspiration that awakens noble instincts and pretty much they lead us to goodness. And he calls it, Kardec classifies it as a base of all regeneration. So we see here, whenever we have faith in, again, faith in the divine, trust in the divine, we are pointing, we are focusing on something that is higher than us, something that inspire us to do something amazing, something that inspire us to believe that there are forces in our lives. There are forces that, and there are quote unquote phenomena, there are quote unquote facts that could be miraculous to us, but actually they are part of this whole master plan of the universe. And interesting also, in this his explanation, Kardec also mentions that it is this faith has to be strong and durable. So you have to if you don't have doubt, then it causes you to shake, and that whole foundation that you have, it tumbles. We spend time studying about the gospel. Of course, I'm a spiritist. This is a spiritist lecture, but regardless of one's belief, we all study about good things, but we should keep in mind that we have to put it in practice. We have to make it part of our lives. We cannot be a different person at the center than somebody who we are in real life. Our faith has to be unshakable. Has to be the foundation of our actions. And Kardec also adds to it, mentioning that the faith has to be stronger than the sophisms and the mockery of the incredulous. So that if it cannot do that, then it is not true faith. In other words, our is all about our values. Our values, they have to be strong. Our values, they have to be what they are, regardless of the opinion of others, regardless of quote unquote social norms. And by social norms, I'm not talking about the culture of of a whole nation. I'm talking about those little social norms of the little niches, the small niches that are of people, of individuals that are part of our lives. Of course, beginning with our families, and then expanding it to our circle of friends and our workplaces as well. So, what is it that we manifest ourselves in society? Those small niches. That's those rules we have to live. In those, we have to be the law of society is a law of nature, so we do have to be part of society. However, we should live by our values regardless of where we are. A very important point here is that faith is the mother of all virtues that lead to God, according to Kardec as well. And pretty much they bring us hope and they inspire us for charity. So they bring us hope again because as we believe that there is something above us, that there is something better than us, that there is something perfect that is taking care of us, so we gotta understand, that gives us hope of something better. That gives us hope that we can be something better than we are. That we can be we can be always become a better version of ourselves. And with that, we see the whole premise of charity. If I have to become a better person, if I have to be better, I have to express that in actions. And there's a whole debate from different doctrines, different beliefs that some profess that faith alone should be sufficient. And a true study of the teachings, even and there's a lot of references to Paul when Paul mentions that, hey, faith is all you need. And apparently, however, a true study of even what Paul mentions of the teachings of Paul reveals to us, hey, faith is very important. Faith inspire us, but the what truly matters is what do I do next? There are the works of God in the universe. God has put the whole universe for us. He created all the laws that govern everything that happens around us. Um, there are also the moral laws that guide how we should act. But above and beyond, there's also my own initiative, my own also on what is it that I'm doing to make both myself a better individual and also make those around me uh, be in a better position as well. So we see here again that the again referring back to the gospel, there is the power of faith that can be manifested itself in the magnetic action as well. So again, we see the power of faith in the phenomena described in the passage, but also we see how we can use the faith to act on the fluids, act on the universal agent, and we modify and giving them impulsion. So we see the power. Talk about the power of prayer, of being able to send this positive energy, of being able to change to change again the universe, this universal agent that we have, that we call fluids, the universal fluid, the primary principle. So how is it that we can change it again? If we have faith, if we have this positive mind, if we are believing that there is always something, there is goodness, that we believe in the divine, then we can. It gives us the willpower to direct that energy towards goodness. And a lot of times we see how much healing that can provide to us, how much well-being that can create, and sometimes situations that could be classified as miracles because they're so extraordinary. We see extraordinary people sometimes helping others, sometimes motivating others in an extraordinary way. Again, it is the faith in something better. It is again the projection of that positive energy. And we see here in the narrative of Matthew, again going back to Matthew chapter 17, 14, verses 14 and 20, when the apostles they try to cure the lunatic son that was referred to them. They could not help the child. However, Jesus was able to cure, and then he mentions he chastises them for the lack of faith. So pretty much again, not being able to have a faith in something divine, not having enough be able to have a faith that the possibility of transferring this positive energy. And to us, after all these years, right, throughout all these incarnations, it is all the incarnations we've been through. To us, it is still something new. Sometimes it's still sometimes a miracle, or sometimes a new experience for all of us. And in a sense, that's what happens. Going back to Peter, that's what happens to him. He was able to initially uh, be part of the phenomena. Of course, Jesus was creating all the conditions for him to be floating above water. However, at the moment, at a very special moment that is mentioned in the passage, he loses faith. And the moment he loses faith is when he loses his focus on Jesus, is when he forgets about the divine intervention, about his master, right? His mentor, and he forgets about that. And what is it that he focus? He focused on the rough winds. He focused on the negative. He focused on the problem. So instead of focusing on the solution, instead of focusing on the fact that wow, I mean, this is incredible. I'm floating on water here. He focused on something that was that was something that was detrimental in his problems, in his situations. And that's like, and it is a common theme in our experiences, because a lot of times we're so concerned about our problems. We're so engrossed into our difficulties and all the disturbances that are around us. And sometimes we're so focused on the rough winds and the strong winds and on the rough seas that surround us that we forget that there are divine forces available to assist us. Sometimes we're so exasperated, sometimes we're so distressed that we forget to pray, we forget to ask for help, we forget to connect to our spiritual friends who are all around us and who are trying to help us, but they only needs a chance. Sometimes we have these friends who are trying to speak to us, they're trying to inspire us, they're trying to fill us up with positive energy, but it's just that again we're so negative. We're not listening to them, we are not paying attention to them. A very interesting point towards the end of the passage is that when Peter falls into the water, he asks for help. And the moment he asks for help, Jesus was right there to help him. Again, goes back to the whole to our own experiences in our lives. And in the crucial moments, that's when we remember to ask for help. Sometimes things so get so difficult, or sometimes we allow things to get become so difficult that is when we finally remember to ask for help, to ask God to assist us, to ask Jesus to assist us, to ask our spiritual guide, our spiritual mentor to assist, or our spiritual friends. And when that happens, the help comes immediately. So again, that's very important, a very important aspect of the passage. Now, there was trust in the divine, but another important point here is the term of faith in us, the faith in the realization of something and in a particular end, because a very important point, and we see that in this particular passage, Jesus does not go to not immediately, he does not go to Peter. Peter has the chance to walk to Jesus. So we see this throughout the gospel. We see this whole concept that hey, Jesus is going to come to you, or he's going to at least make himself available to you. But bottom line, it's going to be up to you to walk to him. So we see here in this particular passage. We see that in the passage of the blind man of Jericho. We see that again, the blind man of Jericho, he had to the moment he saw that Jesus was around, he had to shout, right? He had to yell to Jesus. He had uh, he had to stand up, throw away his tunic, and go walk to Jesus. We see that with Lazarus as well. Remember, in the case of Lazarus, Jesus asked that they remove the stone, right? Jesus asked that the stone be removed. He asked that all the bandages be removed from Lazarus. But after this point, he did not say, "Hey, please, please lift Lazarus up." What he says now at this point, he orders Lazarus to stand up and walk. Right. So we see this point. You need to have faith in the divine, because again, the divine intervention is going to help us by removing any rocks that are blocking our way, by removing any bandages that might be tying up, anything that might be slowing us up, slowing us down. I'm sorry, but also there's our initiative as well, and we see that in our evolutionary path. Nobody's going to evolve for us. We can ask Jesus to help us and inspire us, but again, it is going to be up to us to do our part. We have to do, again, going back to the story of Lazarus, we have to it's going to be up to us to stand up and walk on our own 2 feet. And we see here that again that this faith, that is the confidence of something, in this case the confidence in us, and not only in our abilities to do great things on by earthly standards, because all of us are very capable of doing great things on earth, but also especially doing great things with ourselves, doing great things as spirits. And this gives us another perspective. This gives us a perspective of positivity, of trusting us despite our shortcomings, but having this focus on what I can get to. A very passage, not so much a passage in the book that I find it very interesting. I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with the book Alice in Wonderland. And so Alice, of course, she's lost, right? She's in a different country, and she comes to a point in which there is a bifurcation in the road. Basically, the road splits up in 2 ways, and she's confused because she doesn't know which one of the paths she would choose. And then all of a sudden the Cheshire cat appears and asks her, "Hey, what's going on, Alice?" And she says, "I don't know which path to choose." And then the Cheshire cat tells her, "Hey, where do you want to go to?" And she says, "I don't know." And then the cat tells her, "Well, then it doesn't matter which path you choose." So it's kind of interesting when we don't have when we don't have a focus in the future, when we don't have objectives. It doesn't matter which way we go. So having this faith in the future, having this faith in a better situation for us, in a better, especially from the spiritual standpoint, that gives us this clarity, that gives us a better way for us to choose our paths, right? The same way that Alice, she need to know which way to go to choose the right path, right? The same way we have to have a clear in our clear mind, we have to have this focus on the spiritual, this focus on something that is better than us, or of a faith that one day we can be better, so that we can make the better choices. Speaking of making choices, also Kardec reminds us that whenever we have faith in ourselves, we are calm. It gives us patience that allows us to wait, because especially because we understand in our minds why. Especially we understand that why is it that I believe? Why is it that I believe that there's reincarnation? And why is it that I believe that I'm a spiritual soul? Why is it that I believe that there's a God who is the supreme intelligence, the primary cause of everything? So having this kind of faith in especially this faith that not only inspires us but opens our minds also gives us a calm. Um, and Kardec also reminds us that, on the other hand, when we don't have this faith, then we fall in our own weaknesses, um, and we don't have we tend to be insecure, and a lot of times act with violence. A lot of times do things that do not that goes against our values. And pretty much, on the other hand, whenever we stay calm, at least try to stay calm, it means that we are stronger, and we're in a path of becoming more confident from a spiritual standpoint. Going back to the passage and going back to Peter, we say here, we see this picture of Peter as somebody who's lacking faith, right? Somebody who's kind of like falling behind, and we always have this picture of Peter as an individual who fails. But we see here is a step for Peter's development. Again, Peter was getting ready to be the rock. Peter was the foundation, a man imperfect like us, probably most likely a little bit more mature spiritually, than us, than the average individual on earth, but it's still not a perfect spirit, not an angelic spirit, a spirit that has his prejudices, who has these weaknesses, who has these moments of wavering. That spirit becomes the rock of Christianity. And we see here in John, that's when, in John chapter 1, verses 40 and 42, that's when Jesus calls him, when he meets Simon, Peter and his brother, and he says, uh, and Jesus looks at Peter and says, "Hey, you are Simon. You're Simon Bar Jonas." His name was actually, Peter's name was not Peter. Peter's name was Simon Bar Jonas, Simon the son of Jonas. So he says, "Peter, you're Simon Bar Jonas, Simon the son of Jonas, but you'll be called Cephas." And in Aramaic, Cephas means rock, and then later was translated as Peter, which is the Greek version. So we see here that, again, in all his experiences, Peter was getting ready to become this foundation. And interestingly enough, he's getting ready to become the foundation by failing, by realizing his own, no, but not only failing, but failing, but realizing his own shortcomings. And whenever we see him going through these different experiences, for instance, the most famous one is the denial of Jesus. He denied when Jesus was being, had been arrested, and he was waiting to, had been arrested, and he was waiting to be seen by the high priests. So Peter was there. Peter was in the patio of the house of the high priest, and there was a crowd. And then three times they asked him, "Hey, are you with Jesus?" And he denies three times. With all fairness, Jesus had 12 direct disciples. Out of those 12, when he was arrested, everybody ran away. Everybody was hiding. The only two disciples who were not hiding were John, and John went to pretty much to alert the women, basically Mary, his mother, and uh, Mary Magdalene. And but Peter was the one who stayed. And in the book, Boa Nova, Good News, which is not in English yet, but hopefully will be soon, by Humberto de Campos. So there is all this anguish. There's a very interesting, very in-depth explanation of what Peter is going through, and all the anguish that he feels to be in a situation in which there's nothing he can do to help Jesus, and of course realize how fallible he was by denying Jesus three times. But again, everything was a learning. Everything, those, whenever we fail, we should see those as an opportunities for us to realize in what points can we get better. We see another passage here again, when he draws the sword and he smotes the high priest's servant. His name was Malchus, in John chapter 18, verse 12. So he hurts Malchus. So we see again that, going back to the definition of faith, it remains calm, right? The faith does not resort to violence. So again, here again, Peter is in a situation in which he's learning about himself. He's learning about his own shortcomings. So again, that doesn't mean again that Peter was a failure, but on the other hand, it displays that he was human. Again, Peter was not a pure spirit. Um, he was a spirit, again, struggling like us. He was not an angelic spirit. He was not part of the group of angelic spirits, the group of high spirits that were working with Jesus since the creation of earth. He was again a spirit that still was working with his humanity. However, Jesus saw the potential in him to see great things, and Jesus, of course, was right about him. So again, whenever we believe that we failed, whenever we believe that, hey, I've been studying about all these great things all my life about spiritism for so many years, and I still make all those mistakes. So let's just think about Peter, and about this spirit who, at some point, just like us, had to struggle with his own imperfections, but also in the end, who had a chance, who at some point was able to do great things as well. So again, this is the inspiration that Peter brings to us, is again the potential that we all have, despite our shortcomings, that is still do great things. Now, the third aspect that I'd like to mention here, it is very interesting and it is a bit subtle in the story. It is the point of trust in others, have faith in others. And there is an aspect here that it is understood in the story. It is the fact that in the boat, who did we have in the boat? We have the disciples. We have 12 individuals who had a combination of skills. So Andrew, Peter, James, and John, James and John were the sons of Zebedee. They worked in the fishing industry. Basically, James and John were also businessmen. They used to help his father in the business. So they were fishermen, but they had like fishermen, but have like a business acumen. Thomas, Nathaniel, and Philip were also fishermen as well. Matthew, on the other hand, who was called Levi in Luke, he was a tax collector. So he was, for him to be at that position, that means that he had a high level of education to be in that particular function. Now, another character here who was also on the boat, right? There's was Simon the Zealot, and a zealot. Again, this is not Simon Peter. It is Simon the Zealot, and pretty much a zealot is someone who is engaged in in politics and in anarchy. And at the time, that would be someone who would be attempting or be working towards overthrowing the Roman government. So it's possible that that Simon the Zealot, he was some kind of, could have been some kind of politician or even some sort of a revolutionary. There is no there isn't a whole lot of description about the professions of some of the other disciples, like Bartholomew, Thomas, Thaddeus, or James, the son of Alphaeus. There is no description of what they did. And interesting enough, also there's no description of what Judas did, but he was at the time, for the group of the 12, he was a treasurer. So again, he was not sure if he was highly educated like Matthew. However, he was somebody who would at least have some good organizational skills and some good math skills as well to be the treasurer, to be trusted in that position. So an interesting point now is that what we see here, we see a diverse group of 12 individuals in a boat with some very diverse skill sets who are faced together in an extreme adverse condition. I mean, make no mistake, they're in the middle of a huge lake. It is pretty much a life and death situation that they are facing. And believe it or not, they have to rely on each other. They have to help out each other. They have to near different skills. I'm not sure what Judas would be doing at a time, or Matthew would be doing, or Simon the Zealot, what he'll be doing. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter. They had to somehow try to work together to survive through the night. So this is a very common theme in our lives, because a lot of times, very, very often, we face adversity, and we are surrounded by people who are totally different from us. And those circumstances, they serve to help to teach us to pull together as a team, and whatever that team might be. And the same way that if you're in a boat with a couple of individuals who are fishermen, but then you have a tax collector, you have a revolutionary, you have the treasurer, and some other people that you don't know. We don't know what skills they had, but again, whatever skills people had, they had to put that to work to go through that rough situation. A lot of times, that's a very, again, very common theme in our lives. Not always. Sometimes we wish we had the dream team around us, our dream team in our families, our dream team in workplaces, in a circle of friends, but that's not all the case. I mean, actually, that's rarely the case. And we have to go through difficult times and try to work with one another. And these circumstances that what they force us to do, they force us to nourish the trust that we have to develop in our brothers and sisters. And also they teach us the importance of others to trust on us, to rely on us. There's a book that I like a lot. It's called The Speed of Trust. Of all the non-spiritist books, it is a book that I highly recommend. It is by Stephen Covey, who is not the same Steve Covey who wrote The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. This is his son, Stephen Covey. And he talks about that. He mentions to us that whenever we are in an environment of trust, uh, things just flow so much better. uh, our performance, the way we communicate, the way we interact uh, just works better. Things just run so much smoothly. So again, as we learn how to, in those certain difficult times, they create the trust. They help us develop the trust on those people who are around us. I dare say, in my opinion, that was kind of like another one of those coaching moments that Jesus offered his disciples. They would have to at some point pull together and lay the foundations of his teachings for posterity. But to do that, they have to develop this trust in one and the trust in one another. Um, and that reverberates with what the spirit of trust, the spirit of truth once told us. He told us that as spiritists, we have to first of all learn how to love one another, educate ourselves, right? Love one another, and educate ourselves. So, in other words, help nourish the trust that we need to have between us and others, and at the same time also get ourselves more knowledgeable, educate ourselves, be, become better qualified, so others can trust us, not always from a competence, not always from an intellectual standpoint, but especially from a moral standpoint as well. I'd like also to mention that as much as we trust others, there's always the risk that others will not come through for us. And like John again mentions in chapter 15, verse 13. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So we have to understand that we're going to trust people, but just like us, people are imperfect like us, right? So they're going to make mistakes. The same way that Jesus trusted Peter, and Peter, several times, Peter fell short, he never lost faith in Peter. And again, despite his displays of pride, arrogance, intemperance, uh, lack of faith, the list goes on. I mean, and again, that's why Peter is such an important figure. Not so much because not so much because he was a perfect spirit, because Peter was not a perfect spirit, but because his imperfections, they inspire us and they show us that, hey, the same way that Jesus trusted Peter and he fell short, the same way that Jesus trusts us, Jesus loves us, even though we're gonna fall short as well. But the good news is that, again, progress is a universal law. Progress, it is our destiny. Perfection is our destiny. So the even the most vile person that we have to deal with, one day that individual will reach perfection. And the same thing about us as well. Even despite our shortcomings, one day we are going to reach perfection. Going back to question 540 in the Spirits book, uh, the clarification from the spirits is that everything is linked together in nature, from the primitive atom to the archangel, who also began as an atom. So we see here that, again, even something amazing, even something like an archangel or a very high, even a pure spirit, at some point that pure spirit had a humble beginning. So let's not lose faith uh, in ourselves. Let's not lose faith in humanity, because all of us are in this boat together. All of us are in a process of reaching perfection. I'd like to finalize here with a very short slide that I have, if it's okay to show my last slide here. So I'd like to summarize our talk this morning with a few points that I think are important for us to understand. So the first of all, in summary, right? When the things will get tough, believe me, the life on Earth and in spirit on planets like Earth, it's supposed to be challenging. If it's if it's not challenging, if our lives are not challenged, that means that we're having a short break, because as we go through our challenges, we learn and we become better. However, when things get tough, let's not forget to pray. Let's not forget to ask for help. Just like when Peter was in trouble, when he fell in the water, the seas were rough, the winds were strong. He asked for help and he got the help. So let's not forget that resource that we have, and but also believe in your own potential. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? But believe in you, believe in the things you do. Be self-aware of your good things. Of course, our shortcomings, we show ourselves, we show our true selves at all times. We struggle with our shortcomings, but we also have lots of positive things. So let's have let's believe in our potential to be good. Let's believe in our potential to be our best in adversity. And trust those who are in the same boat, on the same boat as you, in the same boat as you. So again, trust others as well. Seeing that circle of friends, who are the people who can help you, and also see how people can trust you, see how you can be of help to others as well. Do not lose focus in Jesus. Again, there was the big issue that Peter had at the moment, is that the moment he stopped focusing on Jesus, the moment he stopped focusing on the divine or something better, he fell in the water. So again, let's not lose focus of our values. Let's not lose focus of the good things that we learn in the tough times, because that's going to keep us above water. That's going to keep us being the best that we can be. And the last point here, last point I'd like to mention is that no matter how bad things are right now, the winds will calm down eventually. And I apologize for my little typo here, but the winds will calm down eventually. Things will get better. We've been through, in our even in our short existences here on Earth of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years. That's, in our eternity as eternal spirits, our life on Earth is very short. But in our short experience, we've seen that over and over again. Things get very, very bad, but at some point, the sea calms down, the winds don't blow so hard, and again, things will be okay. Things will turn out to be all right. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been it's always great to be here and to learn as we prepare for these lectures. And yeah, let's see what kind of questions do we have. Hey, Brad.
Thank you so very much, Glaucio, for providing us with this edifying and encouraging presentation on faith and trust, which is important in how we live, act, and think. So at this moment, we will open for comments and questions from the audience. And our first, hi, Glaucio. Great material on faith. I feel that faith is so difficult to develop or be maintained during hard trials because of the opposing forces, especially fear, mistrust, doubt, that are more easily powered by people, all media around us. How to succeed in avoiding these negative forces?
It brings to mind that old the old tale of the two wolves. And you have you know, the analogy is that you have two wolves inside of you, one of goodness and the other one which you call of evil. So, and they are always struggling with each other. They are always fighting each other, and it boils down to, and the question is which one is going to prevail, right? Is the wolf of goodness or the wolf of evil? And the answer is which one you're going to feed, right? Which one you're going to allow to grow stronger. We're surrounded, it is part of our experience to be surrounded by it is part of our experience on earth, on planets like earth, to be surrounded by negativity. We talk about the media, we talk about social media, but I mean, ever since, you know, since ancient times, we've been exposed to negativity. We've been exposed to peer pressure on Earth. And again, it's part of our experience. But again, it is up to us to overcome, to overcome that kind of influence. It's kind of us. We see all the negativity, and again, we talk about the media, all the negativity we see, but also it is important for us to look for the goodness as well. To look even in situations in tragic situations that we see on Earth. We sometimes focus on, oh my gosh, so many victims got hurt. Let's think about all those people who are out there helping, all those people who did something to assist others as well. We always see those hidden figures, those people who stand out in the crowd, and even in the moments of adversity, they do something good. Again, we it's part of our experience to have this on earth, to have these external experiences. It's funny because we talk so much about spiritual interference, how much the oh my god, the lower spirits are around us, how much they try to influence us. But bottom line is, they're only going to, both incarnate and disincarnate spirits are only going to influence us and affect us and impact us if we allow them to, if we create the right conditions for that. I'm not saying it's easy, because then it will make no sense. But the most important thing is there's the journey and the learning that we experience.
Thank you very much, Felicio. And which is more important? Faith is not only the belief, but is the constant knowledge, which Spiritism scientifically rationalizes.
So not only the belief, so they go together. The beauty of spiritism is that they go hand in hand. I believe because I see a God that is very logical. I see a God who created amazing laws of the universe, and the laws of the universe, they're so complex that a lot of times we attribute things by chance. Sometimes some people can say, "Oh my God, the universe was formed by chance, and the right conditions were created, and for things to happen." But we understand that there is this God that has all these amazing laws, and this gives us a better faith, a better comfort, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, you believe because you have to." You believe that there's a God because we see His presence in nature. Just right now at CERN, they have found additional subparticles, subquarks. And then you can think, oh my God, where's God? Like, no, God is right there. God, you have a God that is so amazing, that has created this, that every time we look into nature, there's something new for us to learn and to absorb. So the same way that we have the God that has the equilibrium on nature, his equilibrium on the universe, from the largest galaxies to the subatomical particles, to the subquark. The same way we can see, well, if there is all this balance, there is balance in my life as well. There's something better for me. So seeing nature, seeing God's presence in nature, God's laws, how they work, everything's so harmonized. That gives us this sense of security, this sense of harmony, this sense of calm, and at the same time having this the prospect of becoming better people as well. Having this prospect that no matter how many mistakes I make, at some point in time I'm going to be a perfect soul. I'm going to reach perfection. That also gives us a lot of comfort. So, and why do I believe in that I reach perfection? Because I see that in nature. My mind sees evolution. My mind sees development in everything. So this gives me comfort. This gives me strength. So I would say they both go hand in hand. I would not even say that they're complementary. I would say they're part of the same equation.
Comfort and strength are good companions together, definitely. Uh, so, our next question is, how do we make certain that our faith trust is not blind faith?
That is a very we gotta go back to Kardec, right? Kardec mentions that faith, that he was talking about the belief that does not stand the test of time, that is blind faith. So the as I see, I gotta be looking to myself and say, hey, am I belief going through the test of times? Am I, as I learn, am I still certain of what I have, right? And especially the test of time, not only from an intellectual, but especially on a moral standpoint as well. Am I going through situations and I'm going to apply my faith in the correct way? So having this introspective, having looking into ourselves and seeing every situation. I just go through this rough sea. I've been through. I'm saying hypothetically, if somebody's going through a tough situation, as you go through that situation and you look back and you do like what would be called the lessons learned, you look back and you say, how did I act? Did I exercise my faith as a spiritist, as a Catholic, as regardless, evangelical? Did I use my faith, right? So I'm rationalizing. And not only that, is my faith progressing as well? As spiritists, believe it or not, um, we're taught to question things and to analyze things. Kardec himself said, "Hey, if spiritism goes against science, follow science." Right. So as we go through that, we understand, hey, is my faith is not my blind faith. My faith is reasonable faith as well. And again, that goes back to the experience of Peter making mistakes, but learning from those mistakes, making mistakes, and seeing how I can get better through my experiences.
Very, very good points you raised. Thank you.
Sure.
So we have a comment. Would love to hear your thoughts on asking for help from those in your boat when you're not necessarily looking for how to fix the winds or your reaction to it.
Not necessarily looking for how to fix the wins or your reaction to it. So it's kind of like saying, hey, you're asking for the others when you're not really, when it's kind of like when the others in your boat. So you're asking for help for the others in your boat, right? For them to be helped. Uh, so getting out of the analogy, right? When we're in a situation and there's nothing we can do for others, we always have the chance to help. Always have a chance to pray. All of us have free will, and as we are going through experiences together, not everybody not everybody's going to be on the same page, and not everybody's going to think like us, and not everybody's going to be trying to fix the wins or solve the problems, right? A lot of times the problems, they just, there's nothing we can do. We just go have to go through the rough situation. So praying for others is always a way to help. Again, we cannot influence others. All of us have our free will, and that free will extends on what we believe in, on what how we act. And the very least thing I can do is to pray for those around me, and take the liberty to pray for myself, and ask for wisdom, ask for strength, ask for clarity, so that we can go through that situation together in the best way possible. Again, we cannot, like the old saying goes, right? I cannot, we can never change the wind, but we can always redirect the sail, in the analogy of a sailboat. So I cannot always change the situation, but I can change how I react, at least. And the power of prayer, it gives me this strength. This the gives me gives can give me and those around me clarity, especially in those moments, because when we're going through a rough times, a lot of times it starts to get personal. Instead, when the level of stress goes up very high, instead of trying to help one another, is trying to instead of trying to communicate, we create blocks of communication. We create animosity. So again, the prayer, it helps us break those barriers, and at least, if not solve the situation immediately, at least harmonize our interaction with one another. Again, as we go, if we're going through a situation together, there's a lesson that we have to learn together. There's an opportunity for growth that we're going to experience together.
So not to rely just on ourselves, but to reach out to others in trust.
Interest, yeah. In
That's
spiritual friends, I mean, we're surrounded. We have, again, just like, that's why I like this passage so much. I mean, sometimes we're we're in a difficult situation, and reach out to our spiritual friends. I mean, the the problem might be not be solved immediately, and it's another point as well, right? A lot of times there's no problem, right? Sometimes we create the problems, and by not having the clarity, we don't see that, hey, there's no problem, everything's fine, right? And but sometimes, asking for help from the spiritual friends, and ask them for wisdom to calm, to harmonize, right? And that's where the gospel, for instance, if we're talking about a family issue, gospel at home is so important. That moment, that those 30 minutes, 1 hour, once a week, even if it's just once a week, twice a week, regardless. I mean, that moment in which we're together, praying together, reflecting together, it does help. It does help a lot under those circumstances.
good advice, good suggestions, Glaucio. Thank you. Our next question: if a friend or a stranger betrays our trust, how do we renew or maintain our faith in that person as Jesus did?
So, Jesus is different from us, right? Jesus has this vision, ahead of time. So I mean, he has this. Jesus was not only an incredible scientist, but he was an incredible psychologist. So he knew a lot of things about a lot of traces about his disciples, and he knew Peter. He knew Peter had his shortcomings. Peter was everything. If you go down the checklist, Peter was had all has pride, arrogance. He was vain. He had so many different things, but Jesus saw the potential. In the same way, also, we got to see in people the potential and the good things as well. Now, with that said, if somebody betrays my trust, what truly happened there? Because um, in the book Boa Nova, again, I'm referring to it again, Good News. Unfortunately, it is not in English. I hope that they translate the book to English very soon. But there's something very interesting saying there that goes like this, that people are more often weak than wicked, right? People are more often weak than wicked. So what happened? Why did that friend betrayed me? I mean, so was he weak, right? And if he was weak, I have to understand the circumstances, right, of what that happened. I mean, was it a bad tendency? So think about the circumstances of what happened, right? Now, if somebody has a consistent story of letting us down, we should not become enemies with that person. We gotta, like Jesus said, present the other side of your face, meaning not desire what's bad, but also, I mean, we have to protect ourselves as well, protect ourselves and protect our loved ones, and be careful. I going back. I'm going on a tangent here. Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify, right? So it's kind of like say, hey, I'm not going to have animosity to that person, but I'm going to be cautious as to not give that individual, at least individual, other, possibilities to create problems for me as well. Whenever I can extend a hand to that individual, but again, understand that, hey, it might be that that individual is weak, right? Is a weakness. The same way that I'm weak, and I might betray someone's trust at some time. Um, that individual might as well. So with that in mind, is just be cautious, right? And not desire anything bad to that person, not create an animosity to that person, but verify what kind of limits I can create, not to not to run into any issues in the future. And again, there's two sides of the story. I mean, if somebody's a true friend, I can sit down with that person and have a conversation, say, hey, you betrayed me, you let me down, what's going on, and listen to the other person's side. I mean, I'm trying to oversimplify a very complex situation, which is relationships. But that'll be in a nutshell. Verify what's going on. Create, verify the side of the person, if happened, what kind of weakness has led to that, and if necessary, create the put it in place the proper uh, the the proper procedures, so that I'm also protected and my family doesn't get hurt.
Good points. Good points. Uh, so let's see. Oh, we have one other comment. I'm so grateful to Spiritism for demystifying Jesus' miracles through science, bringing a complete different perspective to religion and faith. Your thoughts, please.
I think this comment is related to the previous question about faith, about rational faith. And of course, each one of us on earth, we're at different levels of understanding. And that applies to faith as well. And the way I see it, I respect a whole lot more a God that created laws of the universe, and the universe runs through those laws, and he can do incredible things by applying those laws. So to me, it's very, I have a lot more respect than that to a God like that. It just opens my mind. A God that created a whole universe. I mean, we've seen so little of the universe so far. Our galaxy is 160,000 billion years long. So when I think of a creator that established laws that govern uh, the universe, like a vast and complex universe like that, that just gives me so much more respect for that God. And it gives me a sense of security, a sense of peace as well, because makes me understand that my life is, there are laws, there's justifications for what happens to me. And if I'm going through a situation, regardless of that situation, there's a logical reason for that. The same way I cannot understand the universe, we understand very little of the universe. It's very hard for us to understand at this point, especially if I'm going through a tough time, why and what's the justification. But the bottom line is, as I believe in a very logical, very rational God and a very special and very, very intelligent divinity, I can have more comfort in saying, understand that, hey, that same intelligence, that same order applies to my life, even if sometimes things seem to be chaotic.
Thank you very, very much, Glaucio. And
Pleasure.
our appreciation to everyone who tuned in today for today's Spiritist Talk Live, and those who have been following our weekly Spiritist Talk series. Before we close our live today, I would like to remind everyone of the United States Spiritist Federation virtual course, Initiation into Spiritism, which is provided free of charge on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It is a self-paced course for those who would like to learn or review the basic principles of Spiritism, published by Allan Kardec in 1857. Please avail yourself of this great learning opportunity by visiting the course page on the USSF website and to receive reminders about the course by email. Glaucio, before we close the live, would you please do the honor and offer us a prayer?
Sure, by all means. We have a next talk last next week, right? Is it Marcelo Neto's of Free Wales, Roberto? Nice. Wow, that's a great one. Marcelo is a great guy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great lecture. And anyway, so at this time, let's uh, let's go into our, like Jesus mentioned, let's go in our quiet room, and let's reflect whatever way we prefer. If we prefer to close our eyes, what really matters is that at this time we connect with the divine, we connect with our spiritual friends, and all we have to do is thank for all the great teachings that Jesus left for us, all the great examples that we see in the gospel. We also thank for all the great elucidation that Spiritism provides to us. This enhanced way to look at God, to look at the universe, this the possibility to look beyond our physical realm and understand that there is so much more, and that we are so much more. Understand that despite all of our mistakes, despite all of our shortcomings, we are destined for perfection. Despite all of our tears, that we are destined to achieve pure happiness at some point. We ask for the wisdom to apply in our lives everything that Spiritism teaches us, the teachings of Jesus, and all of those who came before us and who left us so many great lectures. We also ask for strength, especially strength so that we can apply, which is not always easy, apply our moral values in our decisions, in our actions. May God's peace be with us during our week that starts. And again, may we have the inspiration during our tough moments, during our moments of rough sea, to see that there is a master plan in our lives, and that in the end everything is going to be okay. So be it.
Should be it. Thank you, Glaucio, and wishing everyone a calming and mindful weekend and week ahead. Thank you very much for joining.